All right, hello, Miami. You've just enjoyed our premiere screening here at the Tower Theater of the new film Blast Beat, and we are now welcoming you for our post-screening conversation with the filmmakers. This conversation was recorded in advance, and joining me today is the director of the film, Esteban Arango, and the producer of the film, Erick Castrillon, and they both co-wrote it together. So very much a great team here. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We're so excited and thrilled by the opportunity of sharing our film with our Miami community. Miami is our home at heart, so we're definitely very pleased.
That's great. That's great to hear. And I know, I don't know if everyone knows in the audience today, but this is a very personal story. Especially for you, Esteban, it's a lot about your own situation and your own family. I wanted to ask you first of all. So you took a path that some filmmakers do when they're starting their career. Not many, but you originally told the story as a short film, which came out 5 years ago, and did the festival circuit, and then you decided to expand it into the feature film. As your first feature. Can you talk about your the way your approach to telling this very personal story changed through the course of that process?
Yeah, so originally Eric and I grew up together, basically playing in metal bands. We met in Coral Springs in the suburbs of Miami. And our community of friends and family of immigrants from all over Latin America were the central inspiration for us to tell this story of these two brothers. But what we wanted to do was show Latino characters that were complex and ambitious, but not victimize them in any way, because that's kind of like the struggle that we've had with stories coming from Hollywood. So when we first decided to make a short film about that theme, we intended it to be just a short film and a showcase for our, my directing vision and the tone in which we write and the kind of projects that we wanted to continue doing. But at no point did we project that it would become a feature film. It actually all happened when we completed the short film and we were able to premiere it in France and see that the film was continuing to be invited to other film festivals and just experience it with audiences that were all really receiving the message that the film wanted to say, and so when we brought it to Los Angeles and we screened it at the Academy Theater, we were so fortunate that the folks from Macro were at that screening and they were really curious what we were going to do with those characters. So it was all just a very organic process of being open to developing the story of the short film into making it a feature film. People wanted to know what was the origin of this family that migrated from Colombia to the United States and understand a little better what their circumstances for making the move were. But we also wanted to grow Carly's character and not make him just like the outer shell as a metalhead. We wanted to give him a very steep dream, a very like larger than life goal, which is going to and ending up working for NASA.
I really commend you. I mean, that's one of the things that excited me so much about this film. It's just how different these characters were. They slip easily back and forth between English and Spanish. Extremely articulate in both languages. It's a lot like what I see in my world, but not so much on screen. So could you talk about, both of you, could you talk about how the casting of this movie, the cast is amazing, but how the cast collaborated with you in creating these characters, and how, maybe with some of the conversations you had about what you were, aiming for with the characters?
Definitely. I think, the exciting thing for us was first and foremost getting the brothers right. And that was something that we achieved back with the short. as it's self-evident, but it really was inspired by a moment when I was just sitting on my couch in Miami. I was still living there. And I was watching The Kings of Summer, and Moises Arias has a role there where he's supposed to be playing an Italian dude, Biagio. But there was this scene in the movie that was improvised, and Moises told me this story. And apparently the director told him, "Well, this is the situation. You're gonna tell your dad what you're scared, and put yourself in that situation and just ad lib." And and he's like, "But I don't speak Italian." And he's like, "Do it in Spanish. It doesn't matter." And so like he broke out into this perfect Colombian Spanish, and I was just floored by that. I was just like, here's this kid who is insanely talented, who talks like me, and who is cool as fuck, and I want to work with him. And so I told Erick this story. We did a little bit of research and found out that he had another brother who was an actor for Disney. And so we said, that's it. We need those guys. And it's those guys or no one else, because we really wanted to bring their authenticity.
Yeah, and by the way, I was as floored as Esteban. He just hearing his Spanish in the screen, because it was unlike anything I had seen. And Esteban had seen, like he pointed out, it was like this Hollywood up and coming star in this role, like this accent that I could recognize that, I speak like that. So yeah, go ahead. Like it became just the brothers, or I don't know, no one else.
Yeah,
no?
and so because we didn't want to make a movie that felt broad or generalized in the way that we've seen traditionally, where let's say a parent is supposed to be Colombian, but it's played by a Mexican actor. It just like completely loses authenticity for the Latinx audience. So we wanted to try as hard to get their nationalities right. And so the brothers, after a long arduous process of trying to get to their agent and get in touch with them, they read the script and recognized how special it was and how kind of tailor made for them it was, and they immediately signed up. And so they were on board from that very moment. But as the years went by and we developed the project and the script was greenlit, we approached Wilmer Valderrama, who I think Macro contacted his agent, and when he read the script, he immediately resonated with it as well, because Wilmer is half Venezuelan, half Colombian, but he's always been looking for this type of story that shows the immigrant journey in a different light. And so we met with Wilmer, and he was just so charismatic and so excited to tell this story that we were just on the same page from day one with him, and so he signed up. And then Diane Guerrero, when she read the script, she was always so compelled by the immigrant story as well, because her own personal story kind of mirrors it. When she was 14, her parents were unfortunately deported in New York City, and she was left by herself to make a way in this country by living with friends and staying with neighbors. And so she really wanted to tell a story that showed that humanity and that strife in a positive light, to really humanize these characters.
And we always knew that, okay, we need to be truthful to this story, and we need to convey what doesn't exist, because there is no point of reference. So with Macro, we had to, it was a robust back and forth to really juice out the essence of the movie. First they wanted like a comedy, like a Latino super bad kind of thing, and because they saw the short and they saw the comedy in it, and we knew that it wasn't that, but it had comedy, but it had this deeper imperative of telling an iconic version of the immigrant experience. And the original script, it ended in a downer note, but we wanted to inspire people. So it was like a a very intense back and forth to shape the script, so that by the time we were, wooing the actors, except for the brothers who were committed since the short film, they read the script and they really resonated with what we were trying to say.
Amazing. Like, this film is a miracle, and I'm so excited that people are going to be able to see it across the country. But the other question I had is that this film is set, 20 years ago, or a little bit more than 20 years ago. It's a period piece. And, right now in the United States, and in fact, in many places in the world, immigration and refugee political asylum is a very, very hot button issue. Did you think about the contrast between what's happening now in terms of what your story, being set 20 years ago, and the similarities or the resonance for right now, or how did you sort of think through those issues as you were planning the film?
Yeah, it was definitely not by chance that we decided to set it there. First, it was 1999, 2000 was a big year for us. That was, around the time where we emigrated from Colombia and landed in South Florida. But it's also the time when a lot of people from all over Latin America made their way to the United States because of different reasons, political turmoil, the collapsing economies of different countries, and you name it. But when you look at the phenomenon of people looking for asylum, it's not much different then than now. The same reasons always remain. People wanting to look for a better life, for opportunity, for safety. What was different, and why we chose to really make it a point to set it during that time, was because social networks and the internet connectivity was in its infancy. So when you uprooted your life and you moved to a different country, it really meant almost cutting ties with your friends, your family, and everything that you knew back home. You were leaving behind. And so when you got here, it was really a completely different situation than now. It was really tough for us coming of age during that time, because we felt like we were in limbo for a good couple years while we assimilated into the new culture, made friends, found our Latino community in Miami. But it was tough, and that's what was really informing the character of Mateo, living everything that he knows, his family, his friends, his country. And we saw that within our friends and family members, that they tried to move, they tried to get jobs, tried to assimilate, but it was an uphill battle for them. Not everybody is cut out for it. And we saw a lot of people moving back, and it was really heartbreaking and a really complex feeling to kind of wrap your head around, because for a lot of them and for a lot of us, the thought of going back was always kind of met with a feeling of defeat in some way. Like, you went through all this with the intention of being a step forward, a step towards safety, and having to go back was always heartbreaking. But now that 20 plus years have passed, you look back at those people that went back, and they're doing okay. They rebuilt their lives again and found happiness. And that contrast of somebody that stuck it out like Carly to stay here in the pursuit of their dreams, and somebody like Mateo, who was maybe never meant to make a way here in the States, but rather try to find himself and find happiness in his country. That contrast really, I think, encapsulates the feeling that we were all having around that time, and that I still see in our community nowadays.
Also, the question of like, what kind of person would I be if I had stayed? That always kind of like came back to us, and so it was an exploration of that as well.
All right, guys, I have one last question, and it's about the music in the film.
Sure.
How much fun was that to put together? And could you tell me how you collected all this great music for the film?
Oh my God, that was such a gargantuan
This is
task.
awesome.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, metal was a central part of our youth. Eric and I played in a metal band together. Eric is a badass drummer. I used to play bass. I don't anymore. The metal aspect of it, we wanted iconic metal bands in it, but it became really complicated to go around in that. We were able to get Emperor on board, the guys from the t-shirt, because that was my favorite black metal band from back in the day, and one of the most iconic. And that was a process of going online and messaging their manager, messaging their label endlessly until we finally got an answer. But the other metal aspect of the movie, a lot of the music that you hear from it is from a band called Synapticide. And that was another band that I used to play with from South Florida. Those guys are, some of them are still in South Florida and still putting on shows. And then in Bogota, the band that is in the movie playing, Soul Burner, they gave us a couple songs as well, because we invited them to play for our shoot, and that was so sick. That night was just completely bonkers. We had our producer in the mosh pit, which was wild. And then what we wanted to do for Mateo was to go the completely opposite direction, right? So Carly is a metalhead, and Mateo is this, dude who's immersed in the world of hip hop. And so we pursued iconic hip hop bands from Bogota, like La Etnia and others that, Eric, that was one of his tasks in our short window of pre-production. We had to just go up and down our contacts, looking for help. We were able to put together, a good group of songs. But the most iconic and the one that really kind of did something really special for us that we were able to get while we were editing was Caliucci's Telepatia song that's in the montage with the family.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Esteban and Eric, for joining us. And just want to remind everyone that Basti, if you are in Miami, please come and try and see it at the Tower Theater. And it's also available nationwide on VOD. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for having us. It was a pleasure.